Mr. Brass says, you talked about this in Messenger, but for the audience, you seem to deny that kids were killed in the flood. How would you square that with corporate responsibility?
So he's talking about my video on Genesis 7, and I knew this video would upset a lot of atheists. So one thing I'm saying with that is I'm not denying corporate responsibility. I simply noted it's a possibility no kids died in the flood. And my reason for this is quite simple. Atheists say two things. They'll say it was wrong for an omnipotent God to murder so many people in this flood, and an omnipotent God should have found a better way to do something. Okay, do you kind of see like an inherent contradiction in there? Maybe he did, if it was a local flood. Maybe he did something similar to what we did with Sodom and Gomorrah, where he sent angels in to get all the innocent people or the best that the land had to offer out before the destruction could happen. If you're going to say an omnipotent God should have come out with a better way, and you literally can come up with a better way just by looking at the Sodom and Gomorrah account and applying it to the flood, you can't criticize the flood for being evil, because God could have actually found a better way. So I'm only noting that as a possibility, that maybe there were no kids that died in the flood because God could have gotten them out. And if atheists are going to criticize an omnipotent God, they should at least give the benefit of the doubt that that's what actually happened, or that could have happened. So that's all I'm sort of noting with that. In terms of corporate responsibility, I would understand it, especially in terms of the Egyptian plagues, like the 10th plague. And I will talk about that more in a later video. But first I need to do a video on suffering specifically and talk about the nature of it, why I don't think it's wrong for God to allow suffering. I also need to remind people that in the Bible, God is given responsibility for things he does not directly cause. So sometimes it's said that God caused something, he didn't really cause it, he just allowed it to happen. So you could argue God just allowed the flood to happen. God just allowed the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Case in point, the book of 1 Samuel says that Saul committed suicide. Now, if you go to 1 Chronicles, it says God brought judgment upon him. Well, I thought he committed suicide. Well, no, God just allowed him to commit suicide. Therefore, judgment fell upon him. So sometimes when in the Bible, God simply allows things to happen, and he's given credit because he just allowed it to happen. It's just a cultural theme or cultural way to say something. So you could argue that maybe God necessarily didn't cause the flood. He just allowed it to happen and didn't give the people time to get out, or he warned them enough time to get out, but they didn't listen to Noah, who was preaching, and so the flood came in and destroyed them all. But that would be a whole other video to go over into corporate responsibility. But I would clarify that with regards to my video on Genesis 7. I'm not saying that definitely no kids were drowned in the flood. I'm pointing out that if you're going to criticize an omnipotent God for not coming up with a better way and then not giving him a possibility on a better way that could have happened, you're just looking for whatever you can to attack the Bible.